Hello everyone and welcome to a special spooky new episode of the StudioMEcast. We have teamed up with the horror Sci-fi Pittsburgh 48-hour film project, and we are doing our special series of interviewing the teams that are going to have their film screened at the Best of screening and awards night for this Sunday, October 29th. And today I am speaking with the Harbingers of Joy with their short film Joy. And joining me in the studio today, I have ASydni Foshée Juhi Farooqui. Thank you so much for joining me today. How are you?
Great. Thank you for having us.
Of course. So, said it before, say it again. Line of dialogue required for the 48 this time was, I learned this secret long ago. The character, Sean or Shonda Taker Skater. And the required prop was an adhesive bandage. Thank you, lawyers. And but all the different teams get to pull their own genres. What did you pull? What did you go with?
All right. So our horror genre was local lore, and our sci-fi genre was dystopia/utopia. And we decided to combine the two.
Excellent. When you first drew those genres, okay, what were your immediate thoughts? Were you like, oh no, or oh yes, or how did you feel about it?
It was oh yes.
Honestly, for me, it was a little oh no, which is why I'm glad we were on the team together, because I was like, local lore, what do we do with that?
I had actually been hoping that we got utopia/dystopia because I try and take inspiration from like my environment, and I don't know, sorry, I'm blanking.
That's okay.
Like everywhere I go, I try and say, oh, what if I had to write about this? Like, how would I write about this? And how would I turn this into something different? And the job I have has a very unique structure. And I was like, this would make a great, like, dystopian, I don't know, whatever. And I was really hoping that we would get that genre because my brain was already prepared to think of what that environment could be like. And also, when we got some headshots from one of our actresses, I was sitting down with Juhi and Max, our DP, and our DP said, if we get utopia/dystopia, this person would be a great, like, leader. And that's what happened. And that's one of those things that we knew already. We knew how we could approach that, or we knew how we could approach one element of that, and so we were really excited. Or
That's
I
true.
was.
Yeah. No, I was. I guess I should clarify. Like, I was really excited about the utopia dystopia, and I was really like, what are we supposed to do with local lore? Because in my head, I all along really wanted to combine them, and so I was like, oh, like whatever we get, I want to be able to do something with both things. And so with utopia dystopia, like, I feel like there's always a lot. In my head, at least, there's always a lot to say about it.
Yeah.
And we had those conversations before. So, like, throughout the process, in my head, at least, there was, like, oh, yeah, and, like, Max and Sydney were talking about this particular person in this particular role, and, like, I got to get that in there.
Yeah.
But I think I also heard local lore, and I was like, well, I want to work this together, and I don't know what that means.
Yeah, we're not from Pittsburgh either, so we're like,
really?
local
Fantastic.
lore, like, what do they have going on over here? I mean, we do kind of know because we've been here.
There's
but,
a lot.
Yeah.
There's like a
We started
crazy
looking
amount.
into things, and
Yeah.
we were like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And I like that for local lore, you ended up doing your part of your film takes place at a wonderful, well-known Pittsburgh location, the Harris Theater.
Yeah.
How did that come about?
Well, this is the part I love talking about the most, is getting the locations, because I just love hearing yes. So I walked in there. I have to transfer. I take the bus. I have to transfer downtown to get home. And I was out location scouting unofficially. I was just, it was always in the back of my mind, look, got to get the next location. I walked by, and I'm like, I wanted to get a theater because we didn't know what our genre was going to be. We didn't know anything, but I was just like, a theater could serve multiple creepy purposes. So I went in there, and I was just like, hey, I'm Sydney, and the owner, Joe, was like, hello. And I was like, do you know about the 48-hour film project? And he was like, oh, well, I'm actually good friends with PJ. And I was like, that's amazing. So I don't know, I just asked if we could film there. And he was just like, yeah. And I was like, can we change the marquee? And he was like, yeah. And he was very casual about it, to the point where I was like, are you sure? Are you sure? And he was just like,
allowed to say yes?
Yeah, and he was like, yeah, just come and do it. And
very cool.
Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. Well, yeah, it never hurts to ask, right?
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's wonderful. I sometime after this series, we have an episode coming up that I did with a guy named Barry, who is a locations guy. Like, that's what he does. So he worked with like David Fincher and Mindhunter and all kinds of stuff. So looking forward to that, everybody, in case you're interested to learn about the twisted, interesting world of locations. But yeah, it's exciting because you're this explorer. You're going around, you're meeting people.
Yeah, I love
and
that.
it's a great and it's. Yeah, I've had a similar experience where at an old job I had, I would transfer my bus in downtown as well, actually not far from the Harris Theater.
Yeah.
It might have been the same line, but yeah, it's like, you just look around and you just, your imagination easily can wander, especially in a place like Pittsburgh. So
Oh my God.
yeah.
And Pittsburgh is full of like weird people and places. So when you go around and you're like, hey, I want to do something weird here, they're like, please do. So.
Yeah. it's a nice neighborly city. And
But with a lot of like inspiring spots too. Like, I feel like there were a bunch of places where I'd be walking by and I'd be like, oh, we should definitely get that place. And then like it would be like 5 p.m. and they'd be closed and I'd be like, oh, okay. but like there's a lot of just like, it gets your creativity flowing.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So you get your genres, you have your reactions to it, and then Friday night we get down to writing. What did that look like?
So we did this sort of like multi-stage process, right? We had called most of our team together, as much of our team as was like available and willing to gather together. So everyone was kind of in headquarters, which was like one of our team members' house. And they actually ended up watching the live stream, so they got all the genre information as well. And so they just started. They started brainstorming. They had like a whiteboard. They had like,
a corkboard.
They had a corkboard. I was gonna say they were just short of the red string. Like,
yeah. Oh my God.
So they just started ideating. We tried calling them as we were driving back, and we were like, we can't hear anything. There's too many people bouncing too many ideas, so we're just gonna show up and see what happens. And so so for the first like hour or so, we showed up and we were just kind of throwing ideas around, and everyone had like a ton of really cool ideas. And then eventually we had sort of a 3-person writers team. So we got the 3 of us together, kind of secluded ourselves in the basement, kicked everyone else out, and we're like, all right, now we're going to throw out everything that everyone said, and then we're going to slowly pull back little threads from all of it into what we're doing. But I thought that was really helpful. Like, I really, we had a lot of ideas that would never have occurred to me, would never have occurred to, any of us in the writing room, just because like everyone was throwing things out there, and everyone was kind of building on each other's ideas. And so that gave us a lot to work with, just like in the moment. And so we were able to, I want to say like relatively fast, we were able to come up with sort of the skeleton of the story. And then we kind of pulled in some of the key, production folks, so we could start going back and forth on like, oh, what would we be able to edit with this? And hey, Sydney, like, which locations do we have and when do we have them? Where would we be able to shoot things? And like, kind of iterating on that. So.
Now, I should have asked this at the outset. What roles did you all fill on the project entirely? Like, because we get some of the writing room stuff going on, but like credit list, what were your positions on your team?
Yeah, so we were co-directing, and then I was head writer.
And I was a producer. I feel weird saying that because pre-production was a group effort, but like, yeah, that was my role.
But Sydney carried a lot of it.
I mean, I feel like, I don't know, when I think about how we got every little element. I'm like, well, technically Max did that part, and then technically Caleb did that part, and but yeah, that was my title.
Well, good. Well, excellent. Yeah, sorry, should have started with that for the people back home, but there we go. So, all right, so that's the writing process. And then you got your first take on Saturday?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, what time did you start? What time did you get your first take?
It was very hectic that first. Okay, so to give you a little bit of background, I had not done anything film related since college, and I hadn't ever done anything independent, so in the past, all the locations were, set up for me. Everybody lived on campus, like the equipment was at the library, whatever. But starting this was an entire project. Like, I don't even know what time we started. The call time was 7 a.m., but I don't think we started shooting until like 2 hours later.
Yeah, I was going to say probably 9 or
Yeah.
so.
Mm-hmm.
It was very hectic getting on our feet.
But it was also a lot of like cross coordination, right? Like it was, we gathered at the spot, we were like picking up, the bandages, and we were getting other folks were coming with other stuff, and we were kind of collecting up, we were calling up actors, because we also were writing until deep into the nights, right?
Yeah.
So we were like sending messages to actors at like 2 a.m. to be like, hey, be here at 7. Yeah. And so, yeah, there's this sort of cross-coordination of like, okay, we're here, but then we have this other location that we have starting from this time. So, all right, like Sydney's going to go over there and start setting up over there so we can kind of parallelize things. And there's just, a lot of moving parts.
Yeah. And actually, going back to the writing process, our idea was that we had kind of a timeline. So we, like Juhi was saying, we have this location from 10 to 2. We have this location from 4 to 6. We have this location all day. Like we had that visual. And so the total amount of people in the writer's room outside of the writers, we had the lead editor, we had the DP, the AD, and myself. And the AD and I were trying to come up with a schedule as they were writing. And while that was happening, we knew we had this one location from 7 a.m. to noon. And that location was falling through. I could not reach the person who was in charge of letting us in. And that part was so scary for me because I was like, I'm a bad producer. I can't get this location. But we had a backup location. And that's why our call time was a little weird. I'm sorry, I'm talking away from the mic.
You're all right. Mm-hmm.
Cut that out. That's why the start was so weird. It was because we had to tell people, oh, come to this location in Homestead. Never mind, we're going to Squirrel Hill, and we had to arrange the carpool and everything. It was a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot of punches to roll with, but sounds like your average film production.
Yeah.
It's great. No, that's awesome. So you had that day of shooting. Did shooting go into Sunday, or did you wrap on Saturday?
Oh, well, technically, if you count the fact that we were shooting till 3 a.m., it did go until Sunday. But we didn't. There was no everybody wake up and come back on Sunday. We were done. Yeah. We weren't gonna continue into Sunday. One day was enough.
And then we had, and then did you start editing on Sunday? How did that go?
So neither of us were there for I was there for the tail end of the editing process. But this is so weird because we had a lot of great people on our team, and I really want to call on each of them when I talk. I'm like, art editor, Darlene, So our editor, the lead editor, was kind of in it alone, and our AD and DP jumped in to help her on Sunday. So on Saturday, when we wrapped, Juhi came up to me and was like, okay, so how's this editing process gonna go? And I was just like, I know these people. it's done. Don't think about it anymore. When we've wrapped, stop thinking about it. It's done. And she was like, okay. And I was so sleep deprived. I actually hadn't slept the entire 48 hours and then some, because I was running around all week just to make sure those locations were locked down. So the physical effects of sleep deprivation started hitting me, and I was out. And then I think I woke up like in the afternoon, and the editing team was like, we're done, come over. And then I went over, and then I was just like, I don't like that little teeny thing, and I want this to be this way. And they were like, okay. And by then they had already submitted a couple of versions of the film just for safety.
Yeah, smart. Yeah.
And then, yeah. I mean, shout out to the editing team. They took care of it all. Like,
honestly,
we didn't have to lift a finger when it came to editing.
And this is also part of the reason that we were like, we don't want any of the shooting to have to happen on Sunday, because especially when we were like, oh, there's like one person who's going to have to edit all of this, we were like, we want this person to have all the time she needs. Like,
and
about how many people are on your team?
19.
19.
I'm going to not say jinx anymore today, I promise.
All right. So,
we had to count them up and put them in a little form. So.
19, and that's including the cast, right?
Yes.
Great. Awesome. So you had a pretty, let's see, you had a decent-sized ensemble, I'd say, for this. You know, it's like, even just like filling out some spots, you know, it's like, oh, we're in the barber shop. Well, we've got the barber and we've got the person who's working on, you know. And so I thought that was, it was good to get that. Are a lot of the people who are in the cast, are they actors who are pursuing acting? Or are they friends who just helped out and this was their first time? Why don't we talk a little bit about that?
So I think we had a combination of like actors who are actors and pursue acting, and like actually it was mostly it was mostly like actors who are acting. I think we had like a couple of people who are like, I think there's a couple of people who are like, I act and I do like whatever else on set.
I wasn't asking that because I was like, oh, it looks like amateur or anything. I'm asking just because it's a 48 and that happens a lot of the time.
Well, everyone. That's something I wanted to avoid personally. Like, doing films in college, it was so hard because there aren't that many people who actually want to act. And I didn't want anyone to be in the position where they're like, I guess I'll get in front of the camera, because I hated doing that so much. And we had people who were like, I'll jump in if you need me. But everybody was like, yeah, I'm here to act. And I think we had one person who was like, I'm not here to act, but I can. And that is Chase, who was in the vintage shop scene, who comes in and goes, Happy Joy Fest. He just jumped in and did it. So,
Awesome. Well, that's great. So, let's see. We've gone over a bit of that, and let's talk about what you're up for in nominations as well. For the 29th at the Oaks Theater, get your tickets in the description below, everybody. But yeah, why don't we, tell us a bit about what you've been nominated for.
Yeah, so we are nominated for let me see if I can get this right this time, Silent Visual Media Diversity and Inclusion Award.
Sorry.
It's a disease.
I looked to you for help on that one. And then for Best Use of Pittsburgh, and our lead actor is up for an acting award.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. Oh, excellent.
Shout out to Caleb.
Now,
they did amazing.
Now, when you were writing, did you have casting in mind initially? Did you know that? Yeah, we'll talk about, because that's one of the tricky things about writing a 48 sometimes, is you already know who your cast is before you even know what the parts are, right? So talk to me about how you worked with that.
Yeah, absolutely. So in addition to doing a bunch of excellent location scouting, Sydney also had scouted out a bunch of these, actual actors. And so we had this sort of, we had a nice little not quite a board, but like almost a board, right? Of these are the actors we have. We have like photos of all of them. We kind of know a little bit about all of them. We had tried to get the team together a few times beforehand, so we all had a chance to also like meet each other and, you know, particularly like meet the actors and know what they're like as people. And so, yeah, so we really were kind of like, all right, so given the set of people that we have that we can put in front of the camera, how can we structure the story, and, you know, who could we envision each of these roles? Like, as we mentioned at the outset, right, we had like one person in mind that we were like, that person has to be the leader of the dystopia, and they have to be like in this kind of outfit, because we have this image in our head already.
That person was in their headshot that they sent us. She was wearing all white and some glasses. And that's when Max said she would be really great as a dystopian leader. And when we were writing, I wasn't writing. I was just sitting there like, you know, adding my 2 cents. But when the writers were in there, we were just like, Jessica, like she should wear that outfit. And then
and Sydney was like communicating with the actors like as we were writing, right? So she was like, oh, you know, what should I be telling these actors? And we're like, all right, get Jessica in like exactly that same outfit, like, you know, There was two other moments with actors during the writing process. So this was like at 1 a.m., you know, like super late at night. Caleb, our lead, I sent them a picture of like, I forget this character's name. Tommy from Word Girl. I don't even know if you know what I'm talking about. You know the show Word Girl, the cartoon? Look it up. It's this kid's cartoon with this girl. She's a superhero, and she like fights crime with her excellent vocabulary. And it's an amazing show. And there's this kid who's a reporter. I think his name is Tommy. And I said to Caleb, you're a reporter. Dressed like this. Caleb, and I send the picture of the cartoon. Caleb sends me back 12 pictures, all of different outfits. And I'm just like, you're amazing. And like every single one of them was incredible. Like we were going through these
shoulder bag, a camera.
Like Sydney comes over my shoulder with her phone and is like, all right, here's all these photos from Caleb. And I was like, tell them to bring like all the outfits.
Everything. That's great.
How much can you fit in your bag when you get on the bus? That's what you bring.
And then we had Mai, who played Sean. I had the skateboard because that was, you know, we had Sean take her skater, and I was like, I have a skateboard. This was
also one of those exciting moments, like when you asked about how we responded to the genre. Also, like they said skater, and Sydney was like, I have a skateboard.
I said, everybody look in the props like spreadsheet right now. Like I was just like, look, don't even, and it was amazing. And Mai happened, we didn't know what Mai looked like. I was like, hey, you're going to be acting tomorrow. Can you send us a picture of yourself? The coolest looking person ever with that hair that matched the skateboard. And it's just like, oh my God. So that was, I don't even remember what the question was anymore.
Just came to
that's all right. It'll just keep the flow going. So, now, you had talked about how, Sydney, you had talked about how this was the first thing, like, film you had done since college. Is that right? How about you, Juhi? Give us a little bit of your background with this kind of thing.
Oh, man. This is the second film I've ever done. And the last one was for a 1-minute film festival. It was during COVID, and it was, like, me and whoever I could like gather together in one place. So there was like 5 of us. So this was a big jump.
Yeah,
and also
absolutely.
It had been a while.
Has this been an interest of yours for a while?
Yeah, it's been one of those things that I've always sort of had an interest in, and like off and on I kind of dip my toe into. So I'm gonna derail this a little bit to tell you about how I met Sydney.
Go ahead. Yeah, that's perfect. Nice.
Our story.
Because this was like right around the time when I was like really more actively thinking about it. So to give you a little bit of background, I suppose, I don't really know how to describe myself. I write. I do poetry, so I've been fairly active on the slam poetry scene for a while.
She's really good.
I also am like in grad school for science things that are unrelated to any of this. So there's just, it's one of those things that I'm like, oh, I want to do this, but also like it takes a lot of like effort and time and skills that I don't personally have. And so I need to like know people who have skills. And so, yeah, so I ran into Sydney 5 years ago while I was setting up a poetry event that I was doing at this little store that at the time was in Oakland, the Few of Kind store. Now it's in Bloomfield. And Sydney walked through the door because she was working on a student film or had just done a student film,
My very first film ever.
Wow.
So this is like a beautiful story.
Yeah, really like an origin story. Sydney walked through the door. The owner was like, oh, I don't know if you guys have met. I don't know where we would have met otherwise, but she was like, I don't know if you guys have met. And she introduced us, and Sydney was like, oh, I'm like in film school. And I was like, well, funny you should say that. I have some things I've been turning into screenplays in my head. Let's talk.
I think actually when I walked into that store, I walked in to say, hey, nice store, can I film here? And weren't you behind the counter?
No.
Was it someone else?
Someone else must have been behind the counter because
Okay.
I was just setting up for an event that I was like having at the store.
Okay.
But yeah. So that's how I met Sydney, was when I was like, I'm starting to think about actually trying to do something with all these like film thoughts I keep having. And lo and behold, Sydney landed in my life. So
Oh, I just snorted.
Awesome. No, that's great. That's a wonderful origin story. Thank you for telling it, because it's like, sometimes it becomes obvious when we have. Sometimes it becomes obvious when we have two people on the show, like one of the other episodes. It's there's a teacher and a student from one of the student films. Pretty obvious, probably, how they know each other, right? But this is great. So, does that mean this was? Wait, so does that mean this was the first time y'all worked together on a film?
Yeah.
She actually hadn't even seen my film that I did. Like, she has never seen anything I've made.
Yeah.
I don't think you had seen anything I'd made either.
I saw your 1 minute.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And you sent me, like, a script, too, I think. Or, like, you sent me some piece of writing.
Sydney had also been distantly instrumental in that happening, because I, again, was like, I don't really know many people who know film things, and so I reached out to Sydney, and she connected me to people who were near me at the time.
That's really cool. And so this is your first 48 then?
Yes.
Well, and you're going to awards night. Look at you.
Yeah.
Isn't that cool?
We're doing a little something.
Yeah, a little something. That's great. Well, awesome. So do you... I think I asked this. I'm not sure. When did you submit your... Oh, wait. No, yeah, you said, because they had the early versions, and then you kept updating it until the end. So that's excellent. So when it was done, did you get to watch it as a group, or was it more like everybody got to see it at the screening, or is that what's coming up for everybody on the 29th?
So we submitted it. Our final version was at 7:20, by the way.
Nice.
And it was called Final. And
I made my own numbering system for my work, because I kept doing that whole final all caps, final
for real this
honest, please be the last one, and I finally came up with a system that I'm sure someone else uses, but I use it here at the studio for keeping track of like hundreds of projects, sometimes with multiple iterations. So, but no, I get it.
I think we did 4 total. And the first one was rough. The second one was it's okay. The third one was final, and the last one was final. Mm-hmm. But the version that we shared with our group was called Final Fixed, because we noticed that, even though we submitted a final version, there were still things that we wanted to tweak a little bit. Mm-hmm. And that's what the group saw. So we were so tired. We didn't even get to watch it together as a group, when we submitted it.
We had these like grand plans in our head of like, we're all going to gather on Sunday evening after it's submitted, and we're all going to watch it together. And then, like, Sunday evening hit, the editing team was like, we're wiped.
Yeah.
We were like,
they were like, we're not doing anything. But no, none of us were.
Yeah.
And I think it's also 19 of us, you know, so.
It's hard to,
Yeah.
It's like people have spent their weekend doing the film and they gotta get ready for Monday, you know?
And then we tried to like, let's have a quick little rap party. Not everyone could make it. Not everyone could make it to the screening. And it's a good thing that we're at the best of. I think a couple more people are going to be able to join. And we're also planning another screening with a couple of other teams that we hit it off with, because we're not just going to screen our 6-minute and 2-second film at the Harris again. So we haven't all met up as a team since, but we plan to.
Well, that's good, yeah, because it's something that so many people experience through the 48 is building teams and figuring out, like, oh, do we like working together? You know, and it's a great opportunity for that. So now, with the genre you went for, you said you had been thinking about dystopian, utopian stuff like that. Do y'all have favorite dystopian, utopian films out there of any particular type? Any inspirations, perhaps?
I don't. I'm going to cheat.
Go ahead.
In
That's
two
fine.
ways.
You can cheat.
One, I have a favorite dystopian TV show, and I have a favorite sci-fi film that isn't really utopian, dystopian.
Okay.
The show is called 3%. It's a Brazilian show that is about, there's the inland, and that's where the majority of the country lives, and they're all poor, and it's just, you know, terrible. And there's a land that's more technologically advanced called the offshore, and in order to get to the offshore, you have to take a test, and only 3% of people pass. And there's all this lore, and it's just so rich, and it's a perfect show because it only has 4 seasons and it's done. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I love that show.
It didn't wait for it to get bad or anything, and it has an ending. So.
Yeah.
But
well, there
4
was
is
a
still
moment.
a good amount of material for
Exactly.
it. So it's not like, they only did 4 seasons,
Yeah.
you know, probably.
I was so excited, too, because I was like, ooh, this better be the last. And it was. And I was just like, thank you.
Yeah.
And there's a sci-fi film that I really love. It's called Destination Planet Negro. And it is a time travel movie. And it's just hard to explain. It is about Black people traveling to, I don't remember what decade it was, but they travel to the future because they think that the future will be better for them, and they learn what the future really is like for Black people. So I watched that in a film class, and it was just so ridiculous. And I actually, in the hopes that we got dystopia, utopia, or not even dystopia, utopia, but just to prepare for sci-fi, I just did a little bit more research on that film, which didn't really matter because the writing process had to be so, not brutal, but it was kind of brutal. But yeah, I was in the zone just thinking about those two the show and that movie. Anyway.
Fantastic. Juhi, how about you?
I hate questions like this because
but
no,
you have
genuinely,
to answer. It's all right.
Too much pressure. No, I hate questions like this because as soon as someone asks me oh, what's your favorite this thing, I just my brain goes totally blank. I'm like, I've actually never seen a film in my life.
Well, you can always change it, you know. I mean, but were there any inspirations you had for perhaps?
So it's really hard to kind of pin something down, but I think that I happen to be growing up during the time when everything was kind of dystopian thing. That was the genre of choice, right? So I grew up reading the Ugly series and the Hunger Games and that kind of ecosystem of stuff. I was much more of a reader than a watcher growing up because that was just more accessible to me. And so yeah, so I feel just a lot of my my thinking about creative production was informed by all of this reading that I was doing as a kid, a lot of which was in that sort of dystopian vein. So kind of a cheat half answer to your question.
That's totally fine. Yeah, that's great.
Not.
Sometimes I'll ask a question and it's not necessarily to get a specific answer, but just to get the other person to talk about something. So you're totally fine. That's quite all right. All right. So, well, your film Joy is going to be screening at the Oaks Theater on the 29th. Are you going to be in attendance?
Come on.
Yeah.
Of course. We've been plotting and planning about how we're pulling up. So.
Oh, really? Oh, that's good. Sometimes I was on a team where we had a couple of, like, part of the story is these two sisters used to, play cowgirl and all that with little pantomime ponies and all that. And they had, like, cowboy hats and everything. And so we all showed up, like, in cowboy hats with horses and stuff. So
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm going to be jumping through all the possible hoops to be there. Like, literally, I have to be in Philly the night before. And I'm just, like, rearranging my life to make sure that I can be back in town in time. And
she scares me with that.
I've done that drive many times. My wife's side of the family is out by Philly, so a lot of drives, a lot of buses and things. So.
Yeah, my family's in Jersey, so that's
okay, there you go. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, fantastic. Well, thank you so much for being my guests today. I've really enjoyed this conversation with both of you, Sydney and Juhi. And everybody back home, we hope to see you on the 29th. You know the description has that special link for you to get your tickets. It's going to be 13 original short films shot in your city. What could go wrong?
Yeah.
Come on. so come on down to whatever. And of course, it's awesome that we're getting to kind of team up with the 48 here at StudioME. I love what they've always got going on, and it's a great opportunity just to sit down and talk with some people who have been keeping the flag flying for independent film and all that. But thank you very much, and everyone have a wonderful rest of your week. Hey, I hope you enjoyed that episode. If you want to start your own podcast, why wait? Reach out to us at StudioME.me, and I hope you hear me again soon.